Hi, everyone. My name is Dave. For those of you who don't know me, I am the Director of Sales Enablement at Touch Bistro, a company we do restaurant management systems and software like many of your companies here. I thought I'd start off with a really quick experiment in the session, seeing as we actually now get to see each other in person. As you heard Stephanie talking about before, I'm usually at home wearing my bunny slippers as well. And I thought this was a good opportunity to show off my Toronto Raptors belt buckle, because usually people are just seeing, this up, right? We got the last two wins in the bag, hopefully again tonight as well. So really quick experiment here, if you will all just quickly bear with me. Would you please, everyone, stand up? Everyone take a quick stand up. I promise you won't be standing very long. Appreciate you following along. All right, so enablement is a very, very new vocation, right? A lot of us are brand new to enablement, and so I thought it'd be kind of cool to get a sense of how new it is as we go into this solo enablement conversation here. So please bear with me. Everyone who has more than 1 year of enablement experience, please stay standing. Everyone else, please take a seat. Okay. Right? So already we've got about half the room who sat down, right? Okay, let's keep going. Everyone who's got 2 or more years of experience, stay standing. Everybody else take a seat. Okay, a couple more, 3 years. All right, now here's the big money moment. Who's got more than 5 years of experience in enablement? Please stay standing. Everybody else take a seat. All right, take a look around the room when you're networking later. These are some good people to find during networking for sure. All right, and finally, does anyone have more than 7 years of enablement experience? Stay standing. Everybody else take a seat. 10. Yeah, totally. A very good point, right? Sales training, instructional design. Okay, here's the pivotal moment. Does anyone have more than 10 years of enablement experience? Please stay standing. All right, round of applause for our OG enablers leading the way. Fantastic. Yes, please, absolutely. Thanks, Gail. I appreciate everyone playing along with me there. Figured it was good to, get the blood flowing, get moving at the start here. So by way of contrast, when I started at Touch Bistro, I only had about 3 years of sales enablement experience, which, to your point, was more like kind of sales training. I was working at a management consulting company, and so we were sales training and marketing training, but really didn't have any in-house enablement experience. I was doing it externally. So when Touch Bistro hired me back in 2019, they took a bit of a gamble on me. I'd like to think it paid off. Not my call to make necessarily, but as we paint the picture here going into the solo enablement conversation, the company at that time was around 350 employees. There was about 100 sales reps on the team, and we were pushing very, very hard towards IPO readiness. So I was hired as the first sales enablement professional, and as I'm sure all of you can imagine, I had to learn a lot of the lessons very quickly. I'd love to tell you that most of them weren't the hard way, but that is usually the case with these situations, right? And so I thought we'd take the opportunity here today, as so many people are new to enablement, to impart some of the lessons that I learned along the way for your benefit. And of course, if you want to ask me about digging into any of the topics deeper afterwards, we can set up a meeting. Always happy to do that because we've only got so much time here. So let's jump right into it. See if my clicker works. All right, awesome. So starting off with some sales enablement foundations that I found were crucial for solo enablement. First off, we had leveraging enablement technology. I'm sure you've all heard lots about that today. No need to really belabor the point there, right? Strong coaching culture. We heard a little bit about this in the panel discussion as well. Coaching is so pivotal to success because in order to scale, we can't take it all on ourselves, right? We need the support of our managers to reinforce the learning, and we'll talk a little bit about that more. EAR reporting, you're probably wondering what EAR stands for, Enablement's Attribution to Revenue. one of the really important things that I had to learn early, not being a big numbers guy, not being very good at spreadsheets or even, all of the dashboards and Salesforce and all that stuff, was how do I communicate and visualize the value of the programs that I'm putting together in order to get visibility and a seat at the table, right? Leadership buy-in, of course, right? One leads to the other. The more that we can prove our value, the more that we get buy-in for future programs and investments and so on and so forth. Collaboration with subject matter experts. Again, there's a lot to lift here. I was talking to Joanna earlier before, as a solo enabler, right? Continually taking on more projects, not necessarily saying no to a lot at the beginning, and then all of a sudden you turn around 6 months later and you've got a laundry list of projects and you're trying to prioritize and figure out which one you gotta put together next. Collaborating with the subject matter experts in sales and interdepartmentally, super important. And lastly, making it all fun, right? How do we actually want people to get into a room with us and learn on a regular basis rather than, this is one more hour of enablement, this is gonna be boring, right? We gotta gamify it, we gotta make it fun, we gotta use little competitions and spiffs and all these kinds of things to make it engaging. Now, I'd love to tell you that I've got tips on all of these for you today, and ultimately I do, but we don't have that much time. So instead, with the framework of people, process, technology, which is pivotal to the success of any company, I thought we'd just focus really quickly, one lesson that I learned in the first three around technology, coaching, and reporting. So starting off with enablement technology. Tip number one, use free technology. Whenever possible, leverage free technology. Why? Well, as we all know, very quickly, technology piles up. There's a lot of amazing technology out there, but the asks can just keep growing and growing, right? And trying to get budget approved for this is incredibly difficult, and we have to prioritize what we're looking for. Now, I was very lucky when I joined Touch Bistro. We already had a somewhat sophisticated tech stack. We had things like Salesforce and Gong in there. Took me many months to get level jump across the line, but I was able to successfully do that. But looking at this and trying to figure out, well, how do I put together a sales playbook? Or how do I put together, different programs for our reps? It was a lot easier to see what was available for free to allow me to do that rather than to go to the leaders and say, I need another 50 grand for this, I need another 50 grand for that, right? Very quickly, especially as a new solo enabler, you're just gonna get, people are gonna kind of shut you down and not really pay attention, right? So one of the first things that I built at Touch Bistro with a lot of help from subject matter experts, my team, was our sales playbook. And so this was an early one that I was looking at premium tools. There's a lot of fantastic sales playbook premium tools out there, but this was an easy trade-off for me, one that I kind of found by accident while going through the evaluation process, was building out our sales playbook in Google Sites instead of having to get a free, or instead of having to get approval for investment in it. I can tell you 4 years later, we're still using Google Sites to power our sales playbook. That's how capable this is, right? It plugs into all of our other systems, and it helped us solve a lot of problems. One of the big first problems that I inherited when I joined Touch Bistro, we all know as enablement professionals, we inherit a lot of problems, right? People are like, oh, take care of this one, take care of that one. Version control. I showed up at Touch Bistro and our sales and marketing collateral was scattered everywhere, right? It was all over Google Drive. There was lots of different versions out there, and it was very difficult for reps to know what was the most current information they should be reading, what we should be using for our reps onboarding, what they should be sharing with our customers and their marketing collateral and emails and all these kinds of things. And so I found that creating the sales playbook in Google Sites allowed us to solve that. And there's a few big benefits of doing that. First off, it's super easy to edit. Quick show of hands here. Has anyone in the room ever used Google Sites before? Okay, we got a couple. Awesome. As I'm sure these individuals will attest, it's very similar to building a slide deck, right? It's essentially a slide deck in site format. And so it makes it very easy to build and create transitions. I also open this up to a number of collaborators in our marketing department and product marketing, hardware, so that they own different sections of the playbook and they're responsible for keeping this up to date. Because as you can see in the organization on this side, there's a huge amount of content in there. And so you as an enablement professional don't have to be responsible for all of them, right? You're gonna be the one project leading the build, but when you do finally build it, make sure that you collaborate with those subject matter experts and get some delegation of responsibility so that you can kind of piece this out to different departments rather than trying to own it all yourself. And of course, it's easy to navigate as well. One of the awesome things is often overlooked with the Google site, it is keyword searchable as well. And so you can click in the top there, reps can search whether it's one of our competitors or one of our products, a specific lead source, whatever it is. Instead of going through the organization hierarchy on the left-hand side there, they can just simply click on the little navigation button in the upper right-hand corner, and they can keyword search and find whatever they're looking for just in time when they're on the phone with a customer, right? So super valuable tool that I learned in terms of free technology early on. Next one, coaching culture. We heard a little bit about this already today, right? Coaching culture is so incredibly important. And so one of the big tips that I learned, and with a huge amount of help from my colleague Scott here in the room, we have succeeded in doing is turning our managers into coaches. Because I gotta tell you, I'm sure all of you have experienced, or certainly many of you have experienced, there's a big difference between a manager and a coach. And quite often managers think that they're coaching when they're really just doing forecasting meetings, right? We've all been there. And so this is a fantastic quote from Keith Rosen, which from a great book I recommend if none of you have read it before, Coaching Salespeople and the Sales Champions. Ultimately, I would love to stand up here and tell you that sales enablement succeeds in driving behavioral change. We don't. At least in my opinion, enablement creates opportunities for behavioral change. Manager coaching, who they're ultimately responsible for, are the ones who succeed in actually holding them accountable and driving that change, right? And so this is so incredibly important to the success of any initiative that you're launching on the sales side. You need your managers to be bought in, and you need your managers to be regularly coaching and reinforcing it, right? Bringing it up in their meetings, bringing it up in their one-on-ones, doing team trainings and follow-ups. All of these things are super important to the adoption because that one-and-done learning experience, as we all know, just rarely actually succeeds in creating any lasting behavioral change, right? People revert back to the status quo. So what are a couple of the differences? This was one of the major kind of milestones for our managers in understanding what are the different hats that they have to wear and how are they separated, right? Now, as we all know, our sales managers, well, they're regularly providing directives and they're task-oriented. People are accountable to them because of the reporting structure, and they also have skin in the game, right? Quite often, and our managers admitted openly, that a lot of the conversations they're having are because of the month-end pressure on them, and so they're passing off that month-end pressure onto their reps as well. Is that a conducive environment for coaching? Absolutely not, right? Hells to the no. Thank you very much. So, of course, we've got a manager and then we've got a trainer, right? Well, a trainer is also really important, right? One to many, just like this experience here. Training brand new skills, often giving answers as opposed to asking a lot of questions and helping people come to their own conclusions. And we're facilitating exercises and exams. And again, this is really important for managers to do as well, right? We want them to do those team trainings and reinforcements. But again, that's very different from being a coach, right? A coach really is happening in a one-on-one environment. And the big difference between training and coaching here is that coaching is much more catered to an individual's nuances, right? People have different learning styles, they've got different motivations, they've got different skills, strengths, and weaknesses. And so where training gets the wheels in motion, and you can leverage a lot of group discussion and lots of different exercises, ultimately in a group experience, you're not able to really tailor to the individual, and be able to address those things that are going to prohibit them from adopting your particular practice or making the behavioral change that you're looking to affect. And so what we have found is that this is the single biggest contributor to the success of any enablement program that we are running at Touch Bistro. And so, from a loose kind of perspective in terms of percentage, 4 really important things for rep adopting a new training or driving behavioral change. Of course, time is really important, right? We can't expect to happen overnight. We need to factor in time. Tools, important, but we often put too much weight on them, right? We try and leverage technology to drive change for us as opposed to actually working with the individual. Training, as I said, really important in group discussions, but what we found time and time again is where managers are involved actively coaching, this is when the behavioral change takes place. We had an experience at Touch Bistro recently where we launched a new value-added service product. So it was Touch Bistro Marketing, which we launched back in March. And we did this whole big enablement program, right? 2 months of starting with product marketing enablement, and then individual training sessions, team reinforcement. We had level jump tracks. We had all of this. And at the end of all of that, we measured, did we actually drive net new revenue, right? Did we succeed in the adoption of this product? And right off the bat, I can tell you humbly, the answer was no. And that's because I had failed as an enabler to first get all of the managers on board and make sure that they were set up for success to reinforce the learning. 2 months later, we continued to do the month-over-month reporting, and all of a sudden there was this spike on the inbound team. The SDRs had all of a sudden adopted the new VAS products, and that led to higher attach rates on our opportunities going to our AEs, and then they closed a significantly higher ACV about 2.5 to 3 months after we did this program. And so I turned to our SDR managers and I said, hey, what are you guys doing differently? And of course, the simple answer was, say it with me, coaching. Absolutely. So as you heard earlier, right, I believe it was Stephanie who had said it, coaching is not all of our responsibility. It can't be our responsibility. We can influence it. We don't have the capacity to take it all on. But what we can absolutely do is influence a culture of coaching at our company. And so that's been something that we've worked on a huge amount. In order for our enablement programs to be successful, we need to first set the managers up for success to be able to coach their reps, because that's, many hands make light work, right? Makes everything a lot more scalable. Last one we've got here for you, EAR reporting. I tried to do enablement attribution to revenue reporting, and it just looked way too long on the screen, so I made it into a new acronym instead. We got acronyms for everything these days, right? Tip number 3, leaders think quantitatively. This was a lesson that I had to learn early in my enablement career as well, is that I was going to our leaders and I was saying, well, we've got, lots of qualitative value that we're driving. Let's look at some leading indicators of success, right? We're reducing ramp time, right? I can't tell you exactly how much we're reducing ramp time by, but I can tell you we're probably reducing ramp time, right? Next, we've got, quota attainment's going up, I think. Hopefully, but yeah, it looks like month over month, there's so many different factors that impact quota attainment, right? Seasonality, market conditions, competitive landscape, all of these things, right? To actually try and tie enablement programs directly to quota attainment is very difficult to do at times. And data insights, right? We're getting a lot more insights about each of our individual reps as they go through these programs, right? Driving the lagging indicators, well, of course, we're gonna help revenue growth. Again, I can't tell you by how much. OpEx is getting thrown around a huge amount these days. And so it's, operational efficiency, right? We're gonna improve operational efficiency. And of course, we're gonna also look to reduce our regretted attrition, right? These days, I'm sure a lot of you can relate that there's a huge amount of attrition, a lot of turnover in the market going on right now. Enablement looks to improve that, but we don't know by how much, right? And so one of my early learnings and goal was, okay, well, this is nice to have. How do I become a need to have? How do I go to the VP of sales or the CEO and say, not, well, I think we're having some positive value and these are the things that we're looking to impact. How do I actually go and show them that we are indeed having impact month over month? We're also finding learning opportunities to improve upon. So this is one of the things that we innovated on my team early on, team of one, I should say. This was not first state, I will warn you. This was after I was able to have a couple people on my team come in and help me with all of the spreadsheeting and stuff. But ultimately what we were able to do was start tracking ramp trends month over month. All of the cohorts that we're coming in 2020 and 2020, I think in 2020 alone, we onboarded 187 new reps. And so one of the things I had to be able to turn to our leaders and say, well, are we doing a good job of ramping and are we finding opportunities for improvement, right? And so I was able to have much higher level conversations in the organization when I found a way to actually visualize the value and take it from quantitative to qualitative. Sorry, other way around. Take it from qualitative to quantitative. There you go. Bit of a tongue twister. And so a few of the things that we looked at early on for that, right? Tracking historical trends, right? Taking a look at the first 6 months of every rep coming into the organization, keeping those in order of cohort. So they'd be in monthly cohort by each individual rep type. And then after they passed the 6-month mark, we bulked anyone who was still in the company after 6 months into a historical trend. And so as you can see here in the red bar, you can then see how each cohort is able to stack up against that historical trend. So we have a basis of comparison to say, cohort that just came in last month or 2 or 3 months ago, how are they stacking up against our historical trends? Super important. Probably one of the most important reporting things that we've done on the enablement side. And of course, this then gives us the opportunity to celebrate our successes, right? So now that we see, okay, well, our historical trend in month 4, we were only driving about, 65, 70 SAOs with our SDRs. In the 2 recent cohorts, or in November and December, in month 4, we were actually able to drive upwards of 100 SAOs, right? Let's go back to those programs. What were we doing really well? What have we improved? And how do we keep doing more of that? What's an SAO? SAO is Sales Accepted Opportunity. Yeah, as I said, lots of acronyms being thrown around these days, right? Give it a year or 2, you'll hear ear reporting out there as well, I promise you. So celebrating successes, and of course, to give yourself more credibility in the leadership conversations as well, you also need to analyze your losses. They're not all wins, far from it, especially early on as a solo enabler. And so being able to do this type of reporting, you're able to see, okay, when are we succeeding and when are we falling off, and turn that into an opportunity, right? This becomes now, I've got a bit of, I can speak to this as to what factors were involved, right? Do we have a really large cohort with individuals who had less individual attention? Did we make some changes to our learning tracks and now they've just got information overload and it's too much for them to take in? Was one of our managers, do we have turnover, right? Any number of these factors, we want to be able to speak to those and say, hey, we're aware of this, we're working on improving it, right? Being able to have those conversations with your leaders are going to be able to give you a lot more credibility at the kind of VP and C-suite level than just being able to say, yep, we're doing a great job on enablement, think we're driving value, not really sure how to quantify that, right? So that brings us towards the end here, team. In closing, right, leveraging free technology. The one that I showed you was just one of many examples, right? Google Sites was one of my personal favorites, one of the ones that I leveraged early in my career to take that chaos and organize it into something 4 years later that our reps still use day in and day out in many conversations that they're having, all of the onboarding that they're doing. But again, there's lots of other examples out there, right? I use Google Forms for internal surveys and benchmarking all the time, or quizzing quite often for knowledge checks. Right, is what another one of my favorite uses of Google Forms. It would be a very long conversation here if I tried to list all the free technology, but take a look at what's out there and ask all of the other enablers around you what they're leveraging as well, right? Because the more that you're able to build with less asks for budget, makes your life a heck of a lot easier. Secondly, of course, make managers coaches, right? We've got a lot of first-time managers at Touch Bistro. They're fantastic people. A lot of them have been promoted within, but a lot of the companies that you're at as well, I mean, unless you're at a Fortune 5,000 level company and above, most of them don't have internal leadership development programs, right? Ours certainly hasn't. And so taking on the reins of that and getting people to read coaching books and go on LinkedIn Learning and do coaching programs and come together for coaching best practices conversations has really helped us skill up recently with a very young management group who have been promoted from within. And lastly, of course, reporting qualitatively, right? If you want a seat at the table, you want to be able to have budget conversations, you need to be able to show people the value that you are providing to the organization very clearly. And so being able to leverage different reporting structures, whether that's in things like Salesforce Dashboard, Google Sheets, Excel, wherever your proficiency is, pick it. If you're not very good at it, like I wasn't, lean on some of your team members, right? Our sales op team in the early days was instrumental of being able to come up with a lot of this early reporting. And so you don't have to be amazing at everything. You don't have to learn everything, right? Lean on some of the people around you to help you succeed in these things. You have been a fantastic audience. Thank you very much, everyone. Does anyone have any follow-up questions about solo enablement best practices? It's always a little slow going starting off. Yes, absolutely.
I want to go back to something that you said around influencing a culture of coaching. So how do you do that today?
Yeah, so one of the things that we did, it's really nice to be able to lean on a third party like source of best practice information. And so for us, we chose coaching salespeople and the sales champions, and we developed an internal program, a deck that we could go through with our managers based upon that book. And so it's like, look, guys, don't take all of the, we're not standing up here saying we're the absolute best coaches in the world and you should learn everything from us. Instead, it was us creating a program around, okay, this week we're going to discuss chapter number 1. Next week, read chapter number 2. And so we start off each session with a 10 to 15 minute conversation about the best practices that we learned from the book. And then we go into a couple exercises and dig deeper. And we created some kind of coaching reporting structure and that kind of stuff. So we layered on a lot of the kind of program facilitation and leveraged a third party book as the kind of source of truth, if you will. Yeah, great question.
What was the book?
Coaching salespeople and sales champions. This is the Keith Rosen one. Yeah, Keith Rosen, yeah, not quite sure. Cool. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
I have 2 questions. So,
Part 1?
Part 1, for the Google site that you leverage,
Yep.
how did you drive the adoption to have marketing update everything versus like it kind of getting outdated and making sure that's constantly being updated to use as like a resource for the sales?
Yeah, great question. So it's just like a good sales conversation, it's about going around and doing that initial discovery, right? All of them have their pain points. Like when I came in and I saw this just chaos of like, they were well aware of it. And the marketing department understanding their pain points of our reps are going to market with customers and prospects and they're sharing outdated information. That's a big pain point for a marketer. They hate that, right? Likewise with PMM, right? They were like, well, we've updated product X, Y, and Z, but our reps are still having conversations based on Gen 1 or like an older version of it. Big pain point for them, right? And so going around and kind of doing that initial discovery and then kind of bringing everyone together and saying, okay, well, I hear all of your pain points. we think that this could be a good solution so that we've got no more version control issues. People are no longer searching through Google Drive on their own to try and find this information. We'll present the kind of front end, well-organized single source of truth, and then you just help us kind of organize it on the back end. The great thing about it as well, if you're also a Google shop, is that anytime they make any edits to a deck or a Google Doc or anything like that, automatically pushes the update into the playbook as well. So it really helps dynamically update rather than having a lot of static content. Yeah, absolutely. And part number 2.
Part number 2 was, your enablement work has grown now, correct?
Yes, absolutely. As I mentioned, Scott, my second in command, I can tell you this entire presentation could have been about how hiring a second person makes your life a hell of a lot better, because I can tell you it does get easier and a lot better when you hire a team. So we've currently got an enablement team of 4 and hoping to add a 5th, possibly 6th in 2023, depending on budgeting.
What did you dedicate your first resources to? How did you take stuff off your plate and ensure that you still, I would say, own it, but also give direction and structure to the role? Because somebody coming new into the role, it can be extremely difficult. So how did you make sure that Scott was set up for success?
Yeah, great question. A lot of our early conversations were on the kind of the methodology stuff. I mean, each enablement hire that you comes in from so many different backgrounds, right? As we know, it's a new vocation, as we all certainly discussed or discovered earlier, and people are coming in with L&D backgrounds or sales experience or any number of marketing. And so for me, Scott kind of came in with some marketing and publication and different types of background on that side. And so the stuff that I started layering on, catering to him, was sales methodology and some of the stuff that he hadn't had as much exposure to coming from the marketing side. And then project management. So for me, one of the big skills that I learned as a solo enabler, coming from a kind of external sales trainer and instructional designer in-house as an enablement professional, was the necessity of project management, right? At any given time, we've got 17 balls in the air, and if we don't have an organizational system for them, they just start falling all over the place, right? And so I have more recently adopted Trello. Before that, it was just Google Sheets and that kind of stuff. And so I found that has been really helpful. And then so on a weekly basis, we now kind of go through our project list Monday morning. We do updates on them each, and then we just kind of check in periodically throughout the week. But yeah, those were a kind of couple of the early ones, was layering on sales methodology and then upskilling myself in project management so that I could start delegating tasks to Scott so that he could help build out our programs, facilitate our trainings with reps, so on and so forth. Thank you for your questions. Absolutely. Any other questions out here? Think we got time for one more? No, we're good?
We got time for one more, if there is one. There you go.
Yeah, go ahead.
For your ramp program, when you're comparing progress of target attainment, were the targets increasing also quarter by quarter, or you were always comparing progression of ramp based on similar targets? Was quota targets being increased?
In that case, quota targets were not being increased. So you can see there, if you remember the image, you had kind of the line at 100% quota and then 80% attainment underneath that. And so over that given time period, that particular rep set had not changed. We did, however, have that happen on our BDR team, where they went from, I think, 20 sales accepted opportunities down to 14 any given month, and so we had to update our reporting system based on the new quota. And it's just one of those things. I don't know if there's really any easy way to do it. You just gotta. That's part of your talk track, right? As you're speaking to the leaders about it, kind of just accounting for the reduction or increase in quota is just I think that's an important part to bring up in the conversation of how you may be celebrating a success or analyzing the loss. Absolutely.
One follow-up to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go for it.
What did you consider as fully ramped?
Fully ramped was, so our ramp timeline is 4 months. And so if you look at the ramping quota as it goes up, like kind of 0, 33%, 66, so they hit 100% of quota at the end of 4 months. And so our goal as an enablement team is to get as many reps as possible to 100% attainment or higher after 4 months.
So 100% of their year-to-date target by month work?
Their monthly target. So we're month to month at Touch Bistro as opposed to like quarterly. And so their monthly target is, X opportunities or X ACV. And so we're trying to get them to be able to achieve that monthly target by the end of their 4th month. Absolutely. Thank you very much, everyone, for your questions.
Thank you, Dave. Yes, and connect with Dave, right? This doesn't stop here.
Absolutely not.
You need to do more speaking engagements too, my friend.
Appreciate
This
it.
was amazing. Yes.